You ever hear a story that sounds small until you realize it could have happened to anyone? This one's like that. A quiet town, an old burned house across a field, and one man who made the mistake of going to check when he saw a light inside. He says he's never been the same since that night. Let's start today's story. I grew up in a place that never really woke up. The paint on porches faded evenly, the groceries bell rang in the same flat note, and people aged in slow motion, like they'd agreed to stay part of the scenery. Evenings were steady things. Coffee cooling beside me, the creak of a chair that had learned my shape, and the field stretching out to the horizon like an old photograph left in the sun. Across that field stood the Miller house. No story there, not then. Just a husk after the fire. Windows boarded, roof sagged, the smell of old smoke still clinging when the wind was right. No one in town talked about it. We'd all filed it under things that happened once. It had blended into the distance so well that I stopped seeing it altogether. Most nights, I just watched the sky fold into darkness and listened to the slow fade of sound. That night started no different. But you know how it is. Some moments choose you. Something about the air made me look toward that house again. I can't explain it, except to say the quiet had a kind of a tension in it, like it was waiting for someone to notice. There are nights when silence feels too close, like the air itself has leaned in. That one had weight to it, the fog sitting low, the damp clinging to my cuffs. Even the crickets seemed unsure whether to keep going. I remember how the boards beneath me cooled through the soles of my feet, how the coffee's warmth faded before I took another sip. The field looked softer than usual, almost blurred, and at the far end, the Miller house was just a darker shape against the grey. Something about the stillness got under my skin. I told myself it was just weather, just a mood, but I couldn't shake the sense that the night was listening. My eyes kept drifting to the house without my permission. I thought I saw a shimmer at first, a change in shade, but then it moved, a faint glow, uneven, like a hand carrying a candle behind glass, the kind of light that doesn't sit still. I stared long enough to doubt myself, and then too long to stop. Every possible reason, reflection, kids fooling around, passed through my head, thin as tissue. When the light paused and started again, I set my cup down. It felt stupid to look away. I kept staring, trying to name what I was seeing. If I could give it a reason, I could walk away. Maybe a passing car, I thought, but the road was quiet, and that glow didn't sweep. It lingered. Maybe my eyes were tired, but the longer I blinked, the clearer it seemed. It wasn't bright. It had a pulse to it, like someone walking through a room with a lantern cupped in both hands. That house had no power, no wiring, but my mind hadn't caught up to that yet. I was still in the space between reason and curiosity, the part where you keep looking even as something in you whispers not to. It would have been easy to go inside, make another cup, pretend I'd imagined it. But the glow moved again, smooth and slow, and I felt that familiar hum behind my ribs, fear mixed with interest, a current you can't quite resist. I told myself I'd only go halfway across the field, just enough to settle the thought. A quick look, nothing more. But curiosity has a sound. It's the click of a latch in your head. I didn't realize I'd already stood up until I felt the board shift under my shoes. The first few steps were just to prove I could stop. Grass wet to the knee, fog clinging in cool threads. The field smelled of earth and iron, and each footfall made that soft sound of soaked soil taking weight. The closer I got, the more I noticed the shape of the house, how it looked both smaller and taller than it should. The fog moved like breath, opening and closing around me. Distance played tricks out there. What should have been a minute's walk stretched into something longer, like time was pacing itself differently. I could feel the quiet pressing in, making its own heartbeat in my ears. Every few steps, I'd glance back, half expecting my own porch to have vanished behind the mist. When I reached the porch, I hesitated. Up close, the house had a smell, a damp sweetness under the char, like paper left too long in rain. The boards gave with a groan when I tested them, a sound that seemed too loud for the hour. The fog made everything muffled, but that noise carried. I told myself one thing. I'd look, just look, and go. But the glow upstairs had dimmed to a faint pulse behind the boards, and that quiet promise I'd made to myself didn't hold. The door resisted, then gave way with a slow, wet sigh. The air inside felt heavy, stale, almost sticky on the tongue. My flashlight cut a weak path through the dust. It wasn't darkness so much as thickness. Like light could only push a few feet before surrendering. The room looked like someone had left in a hurry and the years forgot to finish cleaning. A couch slouched against one wall, a cup turned upside down on the table, a pair of shoes half under a chair. Everything coated in that grey film that makes even memories look tired. The smell was layered, smoke, mildew, a faint sweetness of rot that clung to the back of the throat. I took a few steps in, and the floor gave a tired creak, as if the house recognized the sound of company. My beams slid across the walls, faded wallpaper, frames still hanging but the pictures long gone, leaving only pale ghosts where the sun had stopped. I don't know why that felt sadder than anything else. Then the noise came. Not loud, just sharp, sudden. A thud, a scrape, the unmistakable sound of something falling in the next room. It wasn't random. It felt aware. Instinct doesn't ask questions. It just moves you. Before I knew it, my body had already chosen. The sound was small, but it landed deep, like it struck the air between thought and reflex. I didn't look. People think they would, but they wouldn't. The moment you hear something you can't place, your mind gives up its vote. I bolted. My shoulder caught the frame on the way out, the jolt sharp enough to remind me I was real. The porch complained again under my boots, echoing too loud. The fog met me like a wall, and for one awful second I couldn't tell which direction was home. Then I saw the faint grey outline of my porch light, a weak, hazy circle in the distance, and aimed for it. The field stretched. My breath came in short, hot bursts that turned cold the moment they left me. I didn't hear footsteps behind me, but the silence chasing me was its own sound, like the field was holding its breath too. When I finally reached my porch, the boards felt solid again. I turned once, couldn't help it. Through the fog, the upstairs glow had changed. It wasn't moving anymore. It was steady, fixed, like it was looking back. Morning makes even bad nights feel smaller, at least for a while. The air smelled like wet soil and burnt coffee, the kind of normal I could hold on to. I told myself I'd been tired, that the fog had a way of playing tricks. I said those things out loud while washing the mug, like saying them made them truer. When the mailman came down the road, I mentioned it. Half a joke, half a question I didn't want answered. Saw a light up there, I said. He nodded slow, didn't seem surprised. Told me the power had been cut months ago. No wiring left inside. He said it like weather talk, then went on his way. That should have been the end of it, but the word sat wrong. You ever have that moment when logic fixes nothing? When the simple answer feels like it's brushing dust over something deeper? I spent the day avoiding the view from my window. But by evening, curiosity gnawed again. The field was ordinary under daylight, almost kind. Still, when my eyes caught the Miller house, I thought I saw something off in the shadows. A darker shade inside the dark, shaped like someone standing still. I blinked, and it was gone. Sunlight has a cruel way of pretending everything's fine. Years have stacked on top of that night, but it hasn't thinned out. The field still sits between my porch and that house, wide as ever, but never wide enough. I still drink my coffee outside, though I keep my chair angled just enough that I don't have to look directly at it. It's not fear anymore, not exactly, just a kind of agreement between me and the dark. Sometimes, when the air feels the same, heavy, damp, waiting, I'll catch that tug in my chest, the one that says don't think about it, and I'll think about it anyway. I remember the smell, the weight of the silence, the sound of that fall in the next room that was too sudden, too personal. People say houses forget. I don't believe that. I think they remember in small ways, through the way the boards shift when the wind passes, or how sound carries differently through their walls. Maybe that's what I stepped into that night. Memory still awake, waiting for someone to stir it. I tell myself nothing followed me home. I almost believe it. But when the fog creeps in again and the field folds into itself, I can feel it watching. Something patient, something unfinished. I still wonder what moved and whether it ever really stopped.